Thanks for asking me to speak. My name is Melissa. I'm an alcoholic. Um, I needed a meeting tonight, like really bad. So God showed up via Eldon and said, "Hey, can you speak in 10 minutes?" And I said, "Actually, I really need to because I'm staring at my phone going crazy." I have a sobriety date of June 20th, 2018. So 3 years, 11 months, and 3 days, but who's counting? When you start getting close to a milestone, you kind of get that little teenage nasty syndrome where you think your birthday's coming up and like you need a whole month to celebrate your special time. Because everything's about me. So anyway, I have a sponsor. She's got a sponsor. I sponsor women. We work through 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous as they're laid out in the first 164 of the big book. I haven't spoken on a Zoom meeting in a little while. The last time I spoke in person, I can barely remember because I'm like having a fog. Today's my son's first birthday, which is really fantastic. My parents are visiting from New Hampshire, where I moved from 2 years ago to be with this guy I met in AA. I know you're getting this is like not the right order, but so I'm having a rough time. So like you're gonna post the audio, and whoever's listening to it, like my bad, you can skip to a different YouTube thing. I dated this guy for like 5 years from when I was like 17 to 23, and he was a really hard drinker, and then he went into he was a hard drinker. He eventually was a hopeless alcoholic, like we are before we come to the rooms, and he never found AA, and I made amends to him about 2.5 years ago, and he said, yeah, you can take your cult and shove it, which is unfortunate. And I found out today he passed away from liver failure, waiting for a transplant for the last 3 weeks in the ICU. And it's like, to stick with AA singleness of purpose, I'm going to say that, as drinkers, some of us are trickle out of things that are involved with it, trickle away from alcohol, right? And a lot of people, I don't know, whatever. Sometimes some people this guy was just drank alcohol, and that's what brought him to the end at 38 years old. And he was never homeless. He never was jobless. He always had his family around him. It's one of those things that some people have a high bottom, and they stay there at their bottom for a long time and they never find the halls. So anyway, that's why I'm feeling a little weird, because I found that out an hour ago and I said, there's no way. That's not happened. So anyway, back on track. I'm wasting time. So in Pittsburgh, we have this thing where we always dress up, and I'm in pajamas, and we take an hour to give our lead to speak. And so I've gotten used to speaking for an hour. So I'm like used to wasting time, like giving dramatic pause, and like I don't have time for that right now. So I got sober in 2018. My life leading up to that point, I was 29 years old at the time. I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire, from a middle-class family. I never wanted or needed anything that I couldn't have that I actually needed. I had a pretty good life. My dad's in IT. He's like a field tech. He's a great guy. He didn't leave he was around. My mom was around. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I had a pretty good upbringing. At the time, I thought it was awful. I thought I had the worst life in the world. By the time I was 11 years old, forget about it. Nobody's had a life worse than me. I started experiencing the spiritual malady at a young age, but I had no idea that's what it was. So I'm 4 years old, and I'm looking in the mirror. I'm like, this is not right. The world's against me. Something's not right. I need something else. I need more attention. I need to eat different food or more food. I need to have more things. I need to pull my cat's tail because I need something to get me out of myself. So I got to be 11 years old. I had my first drink, and nothing really happened that was different than all of the other coping mechanisms that I'd created for myself, to deal with the way that my spiritual internal condition. But the more that I was able to get my hands on alcohol, the more that I found that this is the easier, softer way to live my life. This is this is good. So I stuck with drinking for a long time. And, I dropped out of high school because of some things that happened to me, because I'm the victim of everything, right? And granted, the things that happened in my life are horrible and shouldn't happen to anybody, but but the way that I act and the way that I deal with those things after, like I don't need to be drinking every day of my life for 13 years after I stub my toe, type of thing, which like granted, things in our lives happen that are awful. And that really sucks. But the way that we like continue to live our life sometimes doesn't need to be playing the victim. And that was my MO. That's what I did. So I dropped out of high school. I got my GD right away. And I said, I'm going to go live in a punk rock house and do this cool thing. So I did that for a little while and it didn't work out. And I, moved here, did that. And then when I was 17, I started dating this guy who kind of like put me in a position where I didn't have to necessarily work. I could just hang out at his house, which is what I did best. I just was good at hanging out and doing not anything. And what I was experiencing at the time was just like drinking all the time, and not realizing that I was losing choice in the matter of whether I was going to drink or not. I'd wake up in the morning and be like, this ain't it. I got to do something. I got to drink. That went on from when I was about 17 until when I was 29. It just got worse and worse. It got to the point where there wasn't like a matter of if I was going to wake up the next day, if I was going to drink or not. It was like, I have to figure out how I'm going to drink for the next forever. Like I cannot go a day without drinking. I can't go 6 hours, 2 hours. I can't go a minute without drinking. If there's not alcohol available, I'm going to die. It got to this point where, I couldn't live. Didn't want to die necessarily, but I couldn't imagine living anymore. And that's kind of where I ended up hitting my bottom. I was living in this, by choice, by the way. I could have gone and stayed with my family or whatever, but not in the state that I was in. So I was in this like combination whorehouse trap house. You had to climb up the side of to get into through the window. It was like an abandoned building, but whatever. Real cool place to be at. I'd gone on leave from my job in IT, working at the company with my dad as an assistant to the vice president, as an analyst, like making good money. I'd gone on leave because that wasn't like fitting my needs for drinking. So instead I'd climb up the side of this abandoned building to go into in my like nice work clothes, because that's all I had, like a backpack full of like business casual. So I remember one day I woke up on this deflated air mattress and I said, like, I can't do this. I'm going to die here. And the way I'm going to die is not going to be the cool way that you think about it. And you're going to bed at night. I don't know if anybody does this, but I go to bed at night and I make up stories in my head about either what's happened or what's going to happen, like the way that it should happen or hasn't, or maybe could have happened, whatever. So the way that I always like pictured myself dying was not like, some like by the wayside thing, like another person died, period. I thought it would be like, amazing famous artist gets hit by a truck and blows in the smithereens and it's rainbow colored or something. Like I thought something amazing was going to happen when I died. And it wasn't going to be some unnoticed thing. So my ego and my pride are really at my bottom, what made me able to be willing to take any action at all. About a week prior to that, I got this letter in the mail from this guy I dated for 7 years, who, like, even though I had like been horrible, like been the worst person to him, I was not an acceptable partner to anybody. I was awful to him, and he sent me this letter that said like, hey, I knew eventually we weren't going to talk, but like I didn't think it was going to be like this. So when I got that letter, I like fell to my knees. It was a whole dramatic, oh my god, and then kind of like put it out of my mind for a week. And then the morning I woke up on that air mattress and I felt that way, I said I have to call him. He's going to help me. So I call that guy and he says, like, I'm like, hey, I need you to help me. I can't do this. So he helped me call some places, and I like, sweated on at my dad's house in my old bed for a couple days. And then I went to detox, and my experience there was, what time is it? How much time is it? Hold on. I have time here. I'll try to get through it quick. So I get to detox, and I'm a spoiled brat. I've never had like a lot of different foods before, because nobody ever made me, because I would freak out if I had to try something new. So they didn't have like the kind of popsicles I wanted there. I lost my mind. They didn't have chicken nuggets there. They didn't have a deep fryer, period. I'm like, $5,000 a day? In what for? So I wouldn't eat. I refused to eat. I made them like change my diaper, put diapers on me, change my diaper. I made them sit me on a shower chair in the shower and hose me down. Because I'm so entitled. I didn't want to go out and smoke a cigarette on everybody else's cigarette break because I shouldn't have to. Are you serious? So that's who I was for that week. And I really didn't gain that much willingness. I'd get on the phone with my ex-boyfriend who helped me get there, and I'd say, like, I'm not going to go to this abstinence only program. I'm going to go on some kind of maintenance or some kind of something that'll keep me okay until I get out of here so I can go back to my normal self. But it turns out my normal self like isn't who I'm able to be and survive. So I spent 8 days in detox. I got transferred to like the normal unit. I had this older woman as my roommate. She was trying to feed me oranges while I was like laying there, and I was like, "Get away from me!" It was this whole dramatic scene, and I was like, "I got to get out of here. I got to go to this other place." So I start getting like this tiny bit of, I'm like, I'm going to go to this abstinence only place because I'll get away from this woman. And then I get there and I'm like, well, I'm willing to stop wearing the diapers because like everybody who works here is kind of cool and like goes to the gym and I don't want to seem like a loser. So, my pride and my ego are like kind of helping me along the way. And then I'm in there and I'm in this big book group. It's like the first group I go to there. And I hear this guy talking about his story and like reading excerpts from the big book. And I'm like, oh my God, this person is me. And maybe all these other people in here kind of like are me too. And at that moment, my pride and my ego kind of like slipped away, and I started getting really honest and being who I was, like who I really am underneath, and treating my spiritual condition, which I didn't realize I was doing at the time. But that was like my moment of like complete surrender. Was like, I realized that I'm not terminally unique. I'm not the only person in the world who feels this way. There are so many people who do. So I sat there and I paid attention, and I spent 45 days in there, and I was like the person in rehab who played by the rules, and annoyed everybody because of it. But like, I stayed there. I moved back into my dad's house after. I stayed in ILP for like 99 days. So I was driving out of state to go to ILP every other day. And I got a sponsor who was the woman who worked at the treatment center, who was like the scariest one, that I didn't think was one of us till she shared it, one of our like girl groups for the girls' house. And I was like, wait, she's actually me too. Like she's somebody who, if I saw her at the grocery store, I wouldn't know she was one of us. Like I have no idea. And all I really wanted in my life was to be unrecognizable as what I really am. Because that'd be great. So I listened to what she told me. We read it in the big book. I wrote a fourth step. I took about 8 months to write a fourth step. So during that time I was miserable, really having a bad time, because the more you draw it out, the more upset you're going to be. And then I kind of brushed over 6 and 7. What time is it? 9:57. I must have time. I brushed over 6 and 7, and I started making my amends list, and started making amends, and they were going okay. I had one that really didn't get accepted that well, and that was the person who passed away today. But that went pretty good otherwise. I got to 10, 11, 12. I started sponsoring other women, and I get into this relationship with this guy I met through Young People's AA. When my first day leaving like residential treatment, I was going to be an ILP. I was moving back in with my dad. This girl, Maggie from New Hampshire, said, "Hey, how do you feel about service work?" And I said, "I'm supposed to do that." And she said, "Okay, come to this church on Sunday at this time, and you're going to be on this committee." And I said, "Okay." And I didn't realize I was joining the host committee for a New Hampshire State Conference of Young People in AA. And thank God that she asked me to do that, and I didn't know, because I wouldn't have joined a committee for that. I had no idea. And then people I'd met on that committee asked me, "Hey, do you want to go to the Kentucky State Conference? We're going to drive there and we're going to outreach for our conference." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds great." But in like the 2 weeks between asking me and then when I went, I don't know, it was just like really, I got there and I was like, I don't want to be here at all. Because I had to sit at a table and talk to strangers about, come to my state, come drive, take this 15-hour drive for no reason to see me. Like, are you joking? Stupid. And I just wasn't ready just wasn't really feeling it. I hadn't finished that fourth step yet though, so I was just like really like in my own in there. But anyway, I met this guy through Young People's AA. I actually saw him at that Kentucky conference, and I said, "Ooh, I can't talk to him. He's too perfect." So like I got this idea in my head. So I'm very sick. I'm still at that time, probably now, but at that time I was still very sick, and I decided like this is this youth forever. So stupid. So anyway, I'm sponsoring women, but I'm still like fast forward. I'm sponsoring women. I reach out to that guy in a Young People's AA group on Facebook, and I start talking to him. And it turns out we have a ton of stuff in common. And then we ended up meeting at ECPA, the Eastern Area Convention of Young People's AA in Atlantic City in 2019. And we were like officially dating then. And I had still not let go of exactly all the things that I brought to every relationship I was in while I was actively drinking. And it turns out that a lot of things that have changed about my life and about who I am and the way I deal with things, underlying, like subconsciously, like wasn't fully ready to ask God to remove those things, and I wasn't willing to actually have him take them away either. Because what's life without who I am, which is like super jealous, insano, Captain Insano. So because it's never, it just deflects off of me. So things didn't go that well for a little while. We ended up breaking up. We're still both Young People's Day, so we see each other all the time. Whatever. It didn't. Some time went by. I stayed sober. I kept trying to work my steps again and again. Eventually, I got to a point where I was comfortable and happy, and that's when we weren't really talking at all. And then he called me one day and said, "This is funny." He called me one day and said, "I fucked up. I overdosed." And I said, "Oh my God, like, oh, I love you. You're still alive." And like, I'm sorry to swear at this meeting. I didn't even think of that. Sorry. Bleep me out. I'll pay for the editing time. So anyway, I'm like, "That's horrible. What can I do?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm ready to settle down and have kids and get, you just move down here 600 miles. It's no big deal." And I said, "Okay, here I come." So he went to treatment and for 2 weeks and came back, and he's like been in and out of the program, so he knows, what I mean, what to do. And I guess I'd been waiting for the moment when like it either worked out or didn't, and like I just wanted an opportunity to actually really give it a try, because I had no reason to like move down here before that, and he had no reason to move up to where I was. But we knew that we really wanted to make this thing work, but it just couldn't from such a distance. So COVID's happening at the time. It's like April 2020. I don't really have much going on, except I had COVID at the time too. So I was like in my house stuck. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess I could just pack up everything really quick. So I got everything ready, and then I flew down here when he got out of treatment to like, kind of go over all the logistics of everything. And then I flew down here the next weekend, and then the weekend after that, which was May 24th, 2020. So tomorrow, I drove down here with my car, my Volkswagen Jetta, full of stuff. Everything except my cat, which my dad has now as a roommate and he loves her. So I came down here and I moved in with him at the 3/4 way house. He was living out with 7 other guys. So very comfortable place for a woman to be at. I did never go to sober living. So like this was, I guess, God laughing at me and paying me back for not taking the advice to go to sober living. And so I went home with my dad, and now I live with these 7 guys and all in early recovery pretty much. So that was a mess. The way that God showed up in my life has been kind of, incremental and, big booms, and then, small little stuff in between. But when I moved down here, I was kind of shown that maybe it was the right thing to do and to stick around, because I had this like feeling like I needed to get out of here over and over again. But I kept getting having these things happen. Like this woman I knew had me start working with her, and then was like, "I'm going to sell you my cleaning business." And so now I'm a small business owner. I have employees, and I'm able to stay home with my son, except 2 days a week that I work, basically because I want to. And I'm really lucky in all of these ways. And I met all of these people who are great. And I learned how to like do community living in a way that wasn't like structured like rehab, which is, I guess, important, because now I don't have to do it anymore, but I know how to like respect people's boundaries who I live with, which like as far as being in a relationship and being respectful of the person I live with, I wasn't capable of doing that before I moved down here and lived with a bunch of dudes, and was like forced to, not be catty. Because that's like, if you live with a bunch of women and you're a woman, it's different than, I don't know. It was God showing me how to be, I guess. So anyway, I had to work through the steps again when I had come down here, and I was writing a fourth step that I still haven't finished. And the way that that's affected my life has been very interesting, because things have now piled up, and it's gotten to the point where I'm back at the same people again that I've already, because the way that I'm not going to get into all that. Anyway, I've already like done writing, and then I think I'm about to be done with this fourth step, and I'm like, now I've gone past fears and I've gone past my sex inventory, but now I'm back in resentments again because I didn't just like get it read and like actually do it. So anyway, it's been interesting this past 2 years here. We had decided when I moved here that we had wanted to have children, but wasn't necessarily going to be 3 months after I moved here that I was going to be pregnant already. So, and we'd also found this puppy that we really wanted to get. So we had to move into our own place. And we moved into our own place together about like 6 months after I moved down here. And it was like the hardest thing I've done because I felt so isolated. COVID was still like really very much happening. And even though I knew a ton of people here, it was all his friends. So it was really hard for me. And thank God COVID was happening because I was able to still stay connected with all my friends back home on Zoom, because every one of like my old home groups and everything, everybody was all on Zoom still. So that was a nice transition. I like completely lost my train of thought, forgot time exists. Anyway, I'm like better now. Sorry. So I had a baby last year. That was the most difficult moment of my life. I had an experience where, they're giving me these IV drugs that as an alcoholic, have to make, I had to make a decision of whether or not I was going to have that happen and be concerned about the phenomenon of craving, which luckily didn't happen because I was spiritually well enough, because of working the steps over and over. And like, I think I'm really unwell, and maybe I like make jokes about how like, I really need to get this other fourth step done. But like, thank God I had done all this work in the past on myself that I was able to identify like the way that I felt and make a decision that I was going to be okay. Which maybe I wouldn't have, but I did what I had to do. So I had a baby. It's been the most difficult year of my life. I feel frazzled all the time. But it's been like the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to me. And the way that my partner Jim and I have grown together and kind of grown apart, but then grown, it's like just really, really weird. And I just feel so blessed to be like able to be in the program of AA and to have been given this gift of the big book and the steps, and to have met all these amazing people, and do this work. And I'm just still so shook that that person passed away today that I can't even think about. Normally, I have this whole schmoodle, this whole thing that I'm going to say. And I can't, every time I get to like a point where normally I would switch what I'm saying to something else, I think about him. And it's just like crazy that some of us really don't make it here. And it doesn't matter how much you try to like 12th step them or push our stuff on them. Because if they're not ready, they're not going to hear it. But we just have to be there for them if they are ready. Man, that's rough. I think I'm running out of time. So I guess I'm going to end with just asking us all for a moment of silence for those of us who never made it to the halls of AA. All right. Thank you, Melissa Alcoholic.